Okay, so as I said, there are two types of exceptions, user-defined and predefined. First, we'll see the system-defined one, that is the predefined one. So here I have created a list. I'll forward this to you. This is a list of all the exceptions that is present in Python. This is the predefined one or the system-defined one. Okay. Like you have this zero division error. When you try to divide a number by zero, this is the error that Python sends.
So, being a Python programmer, we should know except keywords.
That you have to know. That is why I said I'll send you this list.
Okay, you have not yet sent.
No, I'll send you today. Okay. Some of them we have already seen, like name error. When you try to use a variable which is not defined, then it throws a name error. Okay. Then you have IO error whenever there's an input-output error. This usually happens with files. So all syntax error, indentation error, all these are types of error that Python throws, and all this is a part of their exception class. Okay. So let's see how to use it. So first of all, like for example, if I write print A, it is going to throw me an error, and the error type would be name error, right? I have to handle this exception. So what I'll do, I will write a try block. All your code, your risky piece of code. By risky, I mean your any code which you think might throw an error is written inside try block.
Like anything can throw error. So everything.
No, like for example, there is a function which gives me the sum of two numbers. Now, the probability and the numbers are also not user defined, you are defining it. So then it will never throw an error, right? So in situations like this, there is no need to write it in try block. You're just increasing the number of lines of code. So you have to decide the risky piece of code should go inside try block. Okay. Right. Now with every try block, it's mandatory to have a except block. Like in other languages, you have catch, right? In Python, you have except. Every try should have at least one except block with it. Otherwise, it will throw an error, invalid syntax. Now, after except, you write the type of error that you are expecting it to throw, the type of error that you want to handle. Like for example, I know that this would be name error, so I'll write name error over here. So this basically means whenever there is a name error, do whatever is present inside this block. And remember, try except all of these are blocks. So I've written colon after it. Okay, so I know that this is going to throw an error. So if I execute, instead of throwing an error, it prints whatever I've written inside except. And you can write whatever you want to write inside except. It may not be a print statement. It could be anything. You want to
like some logical error, like I wanted to shift this control statement again on the print page. Okay, so like it will give the message, this is an error, please enter the name again. Yeah. And then how to switch?
No, it cannot go back to this place. What you can do is you can write it here, like define A and then print it here.
Okay, again I have to write.
And you might not even do this.
Cannot create kind of loop.
So see, it looks as if print A worked fine because it's printing.
Yes. Otherwise, you usually can have a function and then put.
Yeah, you can call a function
That
inside
loop and all
except.
that I know.
No, you can call a function inside except
Okay.
in that case.
Define a function outside the try as well, and
Yeah,
then
here
call
you can
function
define
in
it.
try, and then if it gives error, then call again.
Yeah, sir. So you define a function here, and inside the except you call it.
And otherwise, after except the program will terminate. It is for sure. Although error message will not come, but my program will terminate.
Yes. So suppose I have it prints. It doesn't terminate.
Program.
Except will not terminate the program. That was my whole purpose of writing this exception handler. You see, it went to the except block and then it continued with the program. Okay. Now let's say my try has multiple statements. You can write as many as you want. So I'm trying to divide number by 0. This should throw a 0 division error. Right now it won't because the error is at the first line itself, so it doesn't go to the next line of try. As soon as there's an error, it goes to the except block. So this is never executed. That's why I'm not seeing this error. Let's say for some reason this did not throw an error and it went to this line. Okay, because when you write something in try, it's like it might or might not throw an error. If you know it will throw an error, obviously you rectify it before writing. Okay, so now it will throw me an error saying 0 division error. Even though I have one except block, it still throws me an error because this except block was only for name error. So if you want to write or protect your code from multiple errors, there are multiple ways of doing it. First way is create another except block.
In this situation, like maybe there is a way like we got two errors, right? A and that. So we won't be able to complete our code, right? After first error, it says it's going to accept, and then it will go down.
Yeah.
I want like.
No, that is not possible. If it throws an error, it will not continue from the next step.
Even after catching the exception. So I mean, there is no other way. I mean, in that way, like whole purpose of having this try and accept is like we can handle one error at a time.
No, you can handle multiple errors at a time. See, you have to understand that you don't know that these errors will occur. It might occur. And when it occurs, it doesn't terminate the program, it just terminates that block. So if you feel that there are 5 sentences and each of them is at high risk, you don't put it in one try block. You have different try blocks for that. You can have nested try blocks also. So if you want, if you think that this might throw an error, write a try block here itself for this. But of course, this also needs to have a except block then. So in that case, this will work and then continue with the next. This is also possible.
Because these kind of situations can come, especially when handling files, right? File data may not be correct.
This is one way. The second way is you in the same except you mention as many errors as you want.
But it will do same action and all.
Yeah. For these kind of except blocks, it gets difficult to debug what exactly the error is.
Because every time message will be same.
Yes. Done. Now, what if there's an error which you don't know that it might occur? How do you save your program from that? So for that, what you can do is you can have a except block without naming anything. So if there's an error which doesn't match these categories, then it will directly go to the except block. Like for example, okay, this will throw me IO error because this file doesn't exist. Don't worry about the syntax and all, we've not covered yet. But instead of throwing an error, it goes to the except block and prints error. So if you're not sure of what error might occur, you just simply write an except block and whatever you want to do inside it can be done.
Again, here it will be more of a generic kind. So you don't know that.
Like for example, when you write, suppose you're creating a website using Django or any other framework, and a user tries to reach to a URL which is not present. So usually it throws an error. That is what happens in the background. It throws an error that this URL is not present because in Django you define all the URLs. And if it matches one of those, only then it will be displayed. Otherwise, it will throw an error saying this URL is not present in your application. But a user might enter anything, right? So we have to redirect that. Okay, if there is an exception for this purpose or this case, you redirect that person to a page not found 404 error, something like that. Okay. So what you see at most of the website when you encounter 404 or page not found or something went wrong, there's HTML that appears. It is actually through except. Okay. Had the except not been there, you would have encountered an error. The program would have crashed, or it would have showed that okay, there's an exception or there's an error. Fine. So as I said, each try should have at least one except or as many as you want. At least one should be there. Okay, so it's try, then accept, and after accept, you can also have this block is optional because we saw that my program was working fine even without this block. But if you want, you can also have a else block. So what will else do? Right now, when there's an error, else is not getting executed. If there is no error, then else block is executed. So it will be, it's like if else, where if is your except. If exception, else will not execute. If there is no exception, then else will execute.
This is optional.
This is optional. Like for example, you've opened a file. Okay. Whenever you open a file, always make a point to close it, because if you don't, there is a probability of memory leakage. Okay. So because there was an error here, this did not close. Or let's say the error did not occur here, it occurred somewhere here, print B. There is no B, so it will throw an error. Let's say this worked fine, the file was opened, but then there was an error because of which this line could not be executed, right? So what I'll do is, inside my else, I will ensure that I close this file. So this will now only execute when there is no exception.
There was an error, right? If we would have handled that error, then it would be exception. Then it will terminate the program.
Yeah. So that is why I will not. Yes, so I will. That is why I'm saying I will not write this close statement here. I will write it in else part.
On error, then naturally it will go in the except, and it will not go into the else. Then naturally file
yeah. So
will be kept open.
If there's an error, let's say in there was IO error. Okay. If there's an IO error, you can write except IO error, and then you can close it there if the file is open. Okay. Or else you write it here so that you ensure that, okay, even though there was when everything executed fine, that means the file was opened. So I close it here. Same goes for database connection. If the database connection was established properly without throwing an error, in the else I'll write close the connection.
I'm not getting mainly writing these. If there is no error, obviously we can write in the try part itself, in the first, at the end of that entire code, it will close it. If there is error, either it will terminate or it will go to except. In any case, it's not going to go to else.
Yeah. So if there's an error, okay, if there's an error, suppose, forget about this. Okay, this is my code. I have opened the file. Now, if there's an error here, anyway the file is not open. So even if it goes to accept, doesn't matter. Right? If it throws a IO error, it doesn't matter. I don't have to close it. Right? Because if in fact, if I try to close it, it will throw me an error then that there is no file open and I'm trying to close it. But if there is no error, then it will close it in the else block. Okay. Now, right now there's an error, IO error, right? So it doesn't go to the else block. You can also have another block at the end, which is finally. Okay. So now we will see that right now there's an error, right? And I execute. After except, this finally got executed. Correct? Now I'll remove the error, so it goes to the else part. I'm trying to close it and okay, so it goes to the else part. And even after that, it goes to finally. So in any case, whether there was exception or no exception, finally is a block that will execute no matter what.
Now, the finally, if I read that process.
Yeah, but this is a part of this try except. Try, except, and this has to be the hierarchy. Try, except, else, and finally. You cannot write finally before else, or else before except, or else something like that. It has to be except, else, finally. Try, except, else, finally. Finally is the last block of code. So this way you can handle all the predefined exceptions. Okay, any confusion? So now, whenever you're writing a program, keep this in mind, whether you need to put it inside try or not, even if it's a simple program. Okay? While writing by solving the assignments, you must have encountered a lot of errors before you reached the final conclusion. So that those errors shouldn't have occurred. Okay? Now we will see the user-defined exceptions. How do we define exceptions? Okay? So for this, the first step is create a class. I am naming it my exception, which inherits the exception. That's the naming convention. The class name usually starts with capital letter. Function names and variable names, all of them start with small letters. Now let's say I have init. You can have other functions also. This class may not only work for exceptions, it can work as normal standalone class as well. You can have as many functions as you want. Okay. Now let's give our logic. So if let's say there is some a is equal to a, which I'm taking from the user, let's assume. And if a greater than 5, I want to throw an error. Okay, I'm just taking an absurd logic as of now. If this is the case, I wanted to throw an error. So how do you throw an error? Using this raise keyword. If a greater than 5, raise, and you create an object of this class. Why am I passing this? Because this class has a parameter for init. So when you create an object, you have to pass this value, right? Whenever init has some parameters, you have to pass the value of those parameters while creating the object, correct? Correct?
That we should be passing a number, right?
No, you can pass anything. It doesn't matter. It could be anything. Here in Python, you don't have a specific data type for a specific variable. So if you want to pass a number, you pass a number. That's okay. That's up to you.
I think these two are different A's, right? A over there and A inside this, right?
Yeah, both are different. You want me to change it? I'll change it.
Okay.
Okay, both are different. The scope of this ended here.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if I, of course, if I have an except block, a try block, I need to have except block. Except my exception, and then do whatever you want.
So, for the system-defined exceptions, we have the name error and all those things. Then accepted classes each, or these are the part of
Yes, those are all classes.
all classes, and those are part of exception.
Yeah, base class is your exception. That is a base class for all exceptions. So this is your base class, and everything is a part of it, or inherits it. Not part of it, inherits it.
So if we need to create multiple user-defined exceptions, we should have as many classes.
Yes. Or if you want to, like here I had printed error in the beginning, right? Instead of that, if I want to print whatever I have written here, where is this going? To A, correct? So you can define another variable here called E, and then if I say E dot A, it prints me whatever I have written here.
E is treating an object.
Yeah. Not just here. So if I just write E here, it prints the default value of name error. Like name error also has an init function. Okay. And there also there is this already defined value. So this is the error, that name error always
Error
message that comes. So if you want to print the default value of that error message, you can do it like this.
Is there anything E dot or something else?
No. Because we don't know what's inside name error. However, here we know. So here you have to specify E dot A. If you just write E here, it doesn't print anything.
So how do you get the E dot A? E I'm getting okay. Dot A.
Dot A is coming from here.
Okay, that you know that in your class you have to know.
Yes, because this is user defined, so I can do this.
What do you use the while operation?
Yeah, so raise is basically used. If you don't write raise, it will not throw an exception. If you want to throw an exception in this case for this condition, then you have to write raise. Only then it will consider it as an error. Okay. You can have as many exception classes as you want. You can have as many conditions as you want. Any questions?
Like in the same exception class, I can define multiple steps like A dot B, A dot C.
You can, but
Different ways as per the logic. Suppose if we go to that variable C is there, C should not be like greater than 10.
you can do that. But if you're saying here I write multiple,
Yes.
you're not checking this. So this A, this B are different.
Mhm.
There is no point of having multiple parameters in init.
What is A then?
A is just this message that I'm passing. Okay, let me
Message
instead of A,
value
let me
is
write arc. Just a parameter which takes the message.
we can have some functions as well
Yes.
inside the exception class, and then we can call them in that script.
Yeah, but that would act like a normal class and
Yeah.
function. It has nothing to do with exceptions. Okay?
And those else and finally will work here.
Yeah. The concept of try except else finally is the same whether you're using user defined or system defined, that doesn't change. Okay. There's one type of predefined error which requires special mention. That is the assertion error. So as the name suggests, this is to assert something. What does assert mean? Making sure of. So let's say I have a function which takes a parameter, takes an argument, and here I am saying assert a greater than 0. Print a. Now when I'm calling this function, passing some positive value which is greater than 0, it goes here, checks whether a is greater than 0. If it is greater than 0, only then it will print it. If let's say it's less than 0, it will throw an assertion error. Okay. So this is how assertion error works. So this was all about exceptions. Any questions? Yeah.
we get in this scenario, like practically, like if we have written assertion, definitely we should have an except block.
Yeah. So no, you first need to have a try block here.
So technically, if we are using assert, we should have a try and except block. Without it, that it doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
Could it be like instead of writing in the function definition, it's better to put it in the function. Because we can also write the call as well, right? Try block.
Here?
Function
No,
calling could be a part of try.
No, it should be here because the error is coming here. Even if this is protected, this isn't. You're saying you write a try except here.
Yeah.
So when you called it, it successfully went here. So the calling is happening fine. There's no error there. So it will not go to the except block, even if assert throws an error. Calling doesn't mean successful execution. Calling means you're going and calling the function, which it is happening. Which is happening. It is going to the function and executing the function.
But let's say I'm calling a function. It throws an assert error over there. It will definitely come back to the calling place, right? And then it will tell the system return.
It will, yeah, even then,
It will tell the system we got assert error, and if we have already catched or
no. It will not. As soon as it encounters an error, it throws an error. It doesn't come out and throw an error.
Yeah.
So as soon as this is executed, it will throw an error. It will not wait for the function to end.
It breaks it.
Any questions regarding exceptions? So I'll send you this file. You go through all the exceptions which are present and try to understand in which scenarios they might occur. Okay? So shall we proceed to the next topic then? Next topic is your file handling. Excuse me, can I please take this function? file handling now. So file handling, here we first see how to read and write a txt file using Python. So the first thing that I'll do is I'll create a file. Now before we even start with that, there are a few things. Now, there are a few things that you have to know about file handling. Whenever you want to perform some operation with the file, the first thing you have to do is open the file. And when I say open, what you're doing is basically creating a reference of that file in Python. Okay. And in order to open a file, you have to specify in which mode do you want to open it. So there are multiple modes. First is R. R means read only. So if you open a file in R mode, you can only perform a read operation on the file. Okay, this was R. Then you have W, which is write only. Okay, then it's R plus. Sorry, before R plus write A. A is append.
Small letter.
All are small. Append only. Yes, I'll explain that. We'll go through each one of it. Then you have R plus, which is read and write. So if you open a file in R plus mode, you can perform both the operations, read as well as write. Okay. After R plus, we have W plus, which is write and read. Now both are different. We will see how. And then finally A plus, which is append and read. Okay. Now, first thing as I said would be opening the file. So as I said, opening the file in Python is basically saying that you create a reference of that in Python. So now you need a variable to point to that reference. Okay. So you can name this variable anything. So variable is equal to open within inverted commas the file that you want to open, comma, the mode in which you want to open it. Always make sure you close it.
created that file.
Yes, I have created that. If the file is not created and you try to open it in R mode, it will throw you an IO error.
Super.
Yes. So since it is in the same directory, you don't need to provide any path. If not, you first import this OS module.
Last version, so the file is not working.
That will also work like this if you try.
Can't we use the directly that entire window?
Yeah, you can do that. That will work. It is working and it's going there. So see, when I execute, it's missing a slash over here.
No such file.
And that's you see here. There should be desktop slash. So my direct is basically was like print direct. It will give me the current.
Close.
Oh, okay, so direct is giving me the path. Okay. Now what I have to do is add that slash after this and then it will work.
Just before ABC gives us inside the code. It's working for me directly.
Huh?
Clicking path ID is working.
Yeah, with path also it works, but every time you might not know the path. Right here you knew the path, so you could copy paste. If you copy paste the direct path and write the entire path in place of abc.txt, normally it will work if you know the path. If you don't know the path, you can do this.
It will search in the entire system.
I can do what? Yes. So just a minute. So what I did was first I imported this OS module. Okay. Then I created a variable called direct, and what does get CWD do? It gets the current path.
Current working directory.
Okay, and that it added to path dot join as the name suggests is to join two paths basically. So it is adding the current path to this file and opening it.
So this is the case where the file is in the same folder as the PY.
Yes. I did not get your question.
So in this case, the abc.txt file is in the same folder where this PY file is, right?
No. See. Yes, right, currently.
Even
But
if
that
you,
is even if I remove this.
okay. So what is the output of that current working directory path? Is desktop, right? Or direct? What is the value direct?
Yes.
And there is this py file is.
It is in desktop.
If we remove this py from desktop, put it anywhere else, it will still be able to read the file.
Yeah.
How it, in that case, what will be the value of direct then?
That's not present in the desktop.
Double slash system.
No, that's okay. That's just the way it is taking the path. You see, if I print direct, it's fine. So that is not an issue.
It's basically getting the current working directory and joining the two with this slash. Gives it the
Basically, what you have to do is join the path, right? You just have to change this direct in that case. You will not use get CWD.
And this CWD is the path where this your abcd.py program is run.
No, CWD is in this program. It's giving me the current path.
How it
Current
is
directory.
determining
This is what OS module does. It gives you the current directory.
current directory of my current directory. How
Current directory of the file in which you're writing.
That is.
So now that you have the reference, you can perform the read operation. How do you do that? Again, because I'm reading something, I want to save it to some certain variable. So I'll define a variable, and then using this reference variable, I will read it. So if I say a is equal to variable dot read, and then if I print a, you will see that it is printing the content of the file.
Is this directly to os.get cw is get?
Also,
OS import OS is also.
everything is small. Okay.
If we print where,
It will give you the memory location, because that is what variable is reflecting. Okay. Now, there is something known as a file pointer. So when you have a file, there is a pointer which starts reading letter by letter, character by character. So when you open a file in read mode, the pointer is at the beginning of the file. So when you start reading, it starts reading from the beginning, each character at a time. Once you have read everything, it has reached the end of the file. If I, let's say, try to read it again, it will not throw an error, but it will not read anything. It will be blank because there is nothing beyond that to read. It has already reached the end of the file. However, here if I say 5, now it will only read the first 5 characters. So after reading the first 5 characters, the cursor is at the other pointer is after the 5th character. So it will start reading from the 6th character the next time. Next time when I say read.
if they
There's a space as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because I said read 5 characters.
it was
So in this case, the question that you are asking, you can use ch directory, change the directory and then apply it.
instead of get CWD.
You change it, first get the directory name and then change it and then apply. Okay. Now let's say I read till the first 5 characters, and then instead of the 6th character, I again wanted to read from the beginning of the 5. So how do I move the cursor there? Okay. So first of all, in order to find out where the current cursor is, or what is the current position of the cursor, you have this function tell. So this tell will tell you exactly where the cursor location is. So it says it's at the 5th position after, so it will start reading from the 6th one now.
Once I got the cursor location, then what is supposed to do?
Yeah, so this is to know the cursor location, if at all you want to know.
Mhm.
If you want to change the cursor location, there is another function called seek. You actually don't print it, you just perform the seek operation. Now the seek function takes 2 arguments. Okay. The first argument is how many characters do you want the cursor to move? Okay. So let's say I want it to move 2 characters. Second is from where. So 0 means beginning of the file, 1 means current position, and 2 means end of the file. So if I say 0, it will, and then if I say variable.tell, what should be the output for variable.tell here?
2.
2, because I'm saying move 2 characters from the beginning of the file. So the cursor location would be 2. Not clear? Why would it be 3?
Cursor position starts with 1, not 0, right?
No,
We said move 2, so it is currently at T.
it's not a T. If I move 2, it will be TH.
If we move 2, it will be T and then it will position to I.
No, it is here. It is at position 2. It starts reading from 3rd character. So right now when I read 5 characters, that is what this did. I think you were not paying attention when I did
now,
this.
it will give IS or
Okay, forget about seek. When we discussed tell, what was the output for tell?
correct 5.
5.
5 means fifth position it is done, so from 6 onwards
Exactly.
it will start.
Okay, so this is how you can move the cursor if you want.
So like suppose if I want to start my cursor from 10th position, then
So you write 10 comma 0.
10 comma 0. No, 0 it will again from the beginning.
From the
So
beginning,
from
it will.
beginning to 10th, but from 10th to 20, suppose. That is from current position.
Yeah, so instead of 0, you'll write 1 then. So from current position, move 2 characters ahead. Then it will be at position 7.
1 means what is the meaning of 1?
Current position.
Move from current position.
Yes. 2 means end of the end of the file.
2 comma 1 means from current position up to 2 characters. Correct. But what is
Move 2 characters ahead of the current position.
okay, ahead of the current. So whatever be the current position, if it is 5, then it will be 7. If it is 10, then it will be 4.
Yes. Now what if I have to move at the beginning of the file? What will be the seek?
0.
Seek. So what should I write here?
Up to how much character you want to?
No, I want to go to the beginning of the file.
0 comma 0.
Yes, it would be 0 comma 0. Don't move any characters from beginning of the file. Stay there.
what are the other options? 0, 1, then 2. 2. What is the
End of the file. So you can have minus also. Instead of moving ahead, you'll move backwards.
It is similar like tuple or
Tuple?
or list, like moving -1.
No, it has nothing to do with list or tuple. These are not indexes.
Similar.
This is number of characters. So this was read operation. Now, what changes will I have to make if I have to perform write operation?
No.
Yes, so the mode has to then become W. I'll remove all this. Now, when I write W, if I go and check my file, it would be empty.
No.
Okay, it's because W means overwrite. So when you open a file in W mode, it overwrites it. So now whatever I am going to write will overwrite my previous code with this new one. And similarly, all those other SQL, everything works fine with write as well. You cannot perform a read operation here. Okay. Now let's see the difference between write and append. So let me comment this. When I open a file in append mode, if I go and check it, it's still there. So it's not overwriting, that's for sure. Now if I mention something, let's say variable.write 5 executed. You go back and check, it will append it at the end of the file. Okay. So when you open a file in read or write mode, the cursor is always at the beginning of the file. But when you open a file in append mode, the cursor is always at the end of the file. Now what I'll try to do is, I will try to, as I said, the cursor is at the end of the file. I try to move it to the 0th position and then write Python. Okay. Let me see if it does that. It did not. It will, no matter where your cursor is, append will always append at the end of the file. Append will always append at the end of the file irrespective of the cursor position. Even if my cursor was here.
You open in append mode.
So when I open it in append mode, the cursor is at the end of the file.
But we moved the using C.
Yes, we moved it to the first position,
and
0th position, and then we try to write it. But even then, it will write it at the end of the file. So no matter where your cursor is, append will always append at the end of the file. Write, however, will overwrite. So if I move it to 0, 0 and then start writing, it will start overwriting from the current position itself. But append will always append at the end of the file.
Suppose if I want to write something in between the files, then how to?
So you Don't open it in append mode. Okay. Is this clear? I'll explain. Is this clear?
Yeah.
Now you want to write it in the middle of a file. So obviously, if I open it in W, what will happen? It will overwrite everything. So there's no point because as soon as I open it in W, everything goes. Right? This Python is because of this line. So I'll remove it. Now if I execute, open it, everything is gone. So there's no point of doing this. So what I'll do is, I will open it in R plus mode. R plus mode can help me read as well as write. And it's not necessary in this order that you have to first read and then write. You can perform any operation first. Because when you open it in R mode, no matter how many times you execute, it is not changing the file in any way. Okay. Then you can read it, seek your cursor to whichever position you want. And when you start writing from there, it will start overwriting from that position.
It will overwrite, it will not insert.
No. So if you want to insert, what you can do is you can read the entire file. So now what do you have? You have a string basically, right? This is a string, right? You have a string. You perform operation on it. Read it till a particular character, use for loop, change it to list, whatever you want to do, append or insert values. Yes, so you have to get your logic, append it, and then override the entire file. How to do that? Go to 0, 0 and then write variable.write your new string A or B or whichever variable. So it will override the entire thing with the new content. Okay, however, if you open it in W plus, what will happen?
Writing.
W plus is write and read.
Right.
So it might look similar to R plus. But as soon as I execute, W plus will also prepare your file for overwrite. So in W plus, you have to first write, only then you can read. But with R plus, doesn't matter whether you're writing first or reading first. Okay.
W plus will initialize your file.
Yes, I mean,
Then
preparing for overwrite.
Within the program, you can read it.
Yes.
But once the program is over, then if you rerun it, then again.
Yes. Okay, so whenever you have to change the content of a file, always use R plus.
Clear.
Yes. Okay, so R plus is the one that you will be using the most if you have to change the content of the file. If you're just reading or only writing, then R and W will work fine. Or only appending, then A will work. Okay. Now there are certain modes of a file, certain attributes, not modes. First is this name. So this will give you in string the name of the file. Okay. So this is a string which is getting printed. Similarly, variable.mode will tell you in which mode your file is open or was open. Then finally, very important, closed. It will return true or false whether your file is closed or not. So you can always check. So now in your else part, you can check variable dot. Remember in the exception, you can check whether it's closed or not. If it's not closed, then close it. Otherwise, it's open. Okay. So I will be sending assignments for file, but before that, there's one more question that I want you to try out. Let's say this is my content. I want you to replace this content with something like this. So So all the vowels should be capital. Yeah. Just replace this with this.
Open in R plus mode and do the string operation. At that time, do it.
Either do it here or try it at home if you know the logic.
And what is the practical usage of this thing?
Kind operation. Oh, it's used a lot, extensively used. See, because your content right now, we declare variable, we declare a string and perform operations on it. You will never be having those uh, type of values. Let's say your application generates a log file. It is like a txt file for Python, right? So you read things from that and perform operations. It will always be, instead of hard coding the values of string and whatever we have been doing so far, you will always be reading from a file to get the values.